Traversing the forest and with the beast's deadly stare still fresh in her mind, she kept running, avoiding any obstacle in her path, searching frantically for an opening in the densely packed forest, the dark trees looming high above her, in what seemed like a way to symbolize and solidify her grim fate. With wavering spirit, she pressed on at last. She saw it, an opening and an end to the forest. With the sweat dripping off her and her breath heavy, she stopped and supported herself up against a leaning tree. With her eyes closed and her mouth open, gasping for air, she caught her breath and recovered from the chase. When she opened her eyes again, she was taken aback by the light, in an almost blinding flash of white, then red, followed by a blurry vision of the landscape in front of her. Once her eyes adjusted, she saw she was standing at the edge of a cliff. Leading down a smaller canyon, she could now hear the tramping of a flock of mammoths traversing the land. She had reached the end of the forest all right, and on the other side of the canyon she could see the beginning of the jungle. Tikhan, as named by the locals, the vast, dark jungle sprouting with life, activity, and sound, but most importantly, means of escape. She knew the saber-tooth was unlikely to follow her near the mammoths, but still crossing the marching giants was no easy feat. She began her descent slowly and nervously, but grew more confident as she kept climbing downwards, unfortunately grabbing a loose root as she maneuvered the side of the cliff and slipped, falling rapidly to her death. Was it not for her quick reflexes as she clutched her hands around a protruding rock and saved herself from falling? Once, most of the way down, the loud noises of the marching mammoths became deafening. Fear grabbed her, but determination grounded her to reality. She could do this. Mustering all her courage, she leaped between the mammoths and attempted to maneuver the swirling dust, rocks, and tramping furry giants. Adrenaline pumping through her veins as she ran, her ears felt like they were bleeding and her breath troubled due to the hurricane of dust and fear. Surviving the marching mammoths and recovering safely on the other side, she wasted little time and began to climb toward the jungle, reaching the top. She collapsed on the jungle bed, lying flat on her back, exhaling a single but deep sigh of relief. Gretha laid on the jungle floor, her body trembling from the exertion. The towering, strange plants above her swayed gently, the thick, humid air filled with unfamiliar sounds of small insects, rustling leaves, and distant calls from creatures further in. The deep jungle. She could feel the cool earth and rough stones beneath her for a moment. She simply lay there, her chest rising and falling as she caught her breath, recovering from the dry dust of the mammoth stampede. The rest was brief. The deep, dangerous jungle seemed to wait for her. It was alive in a way the forest had not been, teeming with unseen dangers. She sat up, wincing as she felt the stinging pain from the saber-tooth's claws on her back. The wounds were not deep, but they burned fiercely. She needed water to drink and clean her wounds, so she pressed on,